day 29, the two gardens. He says, though, there are actually three, and I know what he's talking about, but he says, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, two gardens, the great gardens in history. One in Genesis with Adam and Eve. Then the next, the Garden of Gethsemane, Mark 14:32. Humanity in the garden in Genesis faces the life and death decision. We know how that goes. The second garden, Jesus faces a life and death decision, but this time, of course, the decision is different. It goes differently. In this garden, we actually see an astonishing display of Jesus's vulnerability when he is asking the disciples to keep watch with him. He is going to face intense testing, intense suffering, and he wants his friends nearby. He is feeling vulnerable. He is feeling weak. He is feeling just the extreme anxiety of what he's about to face. And in fact, in Luke, it does say that his sweat became like clots of blood falling on the ground. Chapter 22, verse 44. And this is called hematohidrosis. Not going to go into that too much, but it is the mental stress levels at such intensity that blood vessels surrounding the sweat glands will burst, and so the sweat will mix with blood. And so we look at Jesus' intense testing, and he said, and he says, this is how he identifies with us. Have you ever been afraid of physical harm? Check. Have you ever been afraid of death and what follows? Check. Have you ever been afraid the path in front of you is far too difficult? Check. Have you ever been afraid that God will not rescue you in the way that you want? Check. And so, as one writer, N.T. Wright, a favorite writer of mine, in Jesus and the Victory of God, he says, it was, after all, a huge gamble. Messiahs are supposed to defeat the pagans, not to die at their hands. And so, in the garden, he is facing questions, concerns, stress, and fear. And this is why he wants his friends close. This is why he is sweating blood. Remarkably, in the face of every fear and temptation, he refuses to abandon his trust in his Abba, Father. Jesus chooses to endure the cross because he trusts that the outcome is in the hands of his Father, and that in 12:2 of Hebrews, the joy spread out and waiting for him on the other side of his suffering and death is worth it, in fact. And so we look at the extreme choice that he made to the deepest reaches of who he is, and we see that on the cross, he will vanquish the power of evil by absorbing all its power. He'll represent humanity. He will substitute himself in the place of his people. He'll ransom his life in exchange for ours. And in the end, he will be vindicated as king, as high priest, as it says in Hebrews 5, by the power of God.